What's up, YouTube? Does your 88 to 91 Honda Civic EF leak oil like crazy? Well, mine does, and we're gonna fix that today. So I have determined that my oil pan gasket is leaking, and it just leaves drips everywhere it goes. So unfortunately, I put one in about a year and a half ago, but I guess it didn't seat right. So we're gonna go ahead and pull it apart and do it again, and hopefully fixes it this time. So if you're interested in learning how to do that, follow along and we'll get started here. All right, so we got a big vat of oil here. Really need to empty that thing out, but it'll be good for one more drain. Get up here. They should be 17 millimeters. So you just break it loose and ratchet it off. If it gets to a certain point, you can do it by hand. Just make sure when this shoots out, you got enough room in the back here because it's going to shoot out pretty far. And we just get the bolt here and the oil comes out. So we wait for it to drain as much as it possibly can. Then we'll put the plug back in and move on to the next step, which is removing the exhaust. You might be able to do it on this without it, but I don't recall that being the case. The primary reason is because the oil pickup tube is here. It's hard to wrangle it out of the way. So I think the best course of action is to just remove the pipe coming from the header to the cat here and get that out of the way. And then we'll have a couple brackets we need to remove here where it mates up to the transmission. So I'm pretty satisfied now that we got enough oil out of this thing. Got the drain plug back in, and now we're gonna go ahead and remove this exhaust pipe to get the oil pan out of the way. So yours may be at different levels of rustiness than mine. This one looks like it's a bit crunchy, but it's not too bad. We're gonna just try to take apart and not wreck everything while we're at it, because if I need a new gasket there, it's going to be probably another week before I can get one in from Rock Auto. And then we'll take that off there. Once again, hopefully we don't need a new gasket. All right, let's do it. All right, so the bracket's off, the flange is off here. The only thing left that's holding this up here is the actual flange that attaches it to the header right here. So we're gonna go ahead and try to zip this off. Now my extension is a little bit too long, and the longer the extension you have, the less torque you get out of your impact, but this is a pretty heavy duty impact, so it should do the trick. But I'm afraid we are gonna break something. But if we break something, it's an excuse to buy a new exhaust. So let's see if we can get these off. All right, that's one. And two. And Honda, in their infinite wisdom, put a little notch right here so you can get up here and get the bolt out for your flange here, and then it allows you also the space to get the pipe out. That one was too rusty. We rounded it off. So that made this job just a little bit more difficult. There's only really one more thing we can do here, and that's hammer a smaller sized socket on it to see if we can get it off. Otherwise, we're gonna have to take the whole header off up top, which is not ideal, but not the end of the world. So I'm gonna see if I can get a smaller one on here, and maybe we'll have some luck. I have a feeling we won't. All right, so this was a 14 millimeter. I've got a 13 right here, and I can't right now find my big hammer. So I'm gonna try to see if we can get it on here with the mallet. I have a feeling we won't, but we're gonna give it a try. It seems to be going on okay. We got a ways to go though. Maybe just a little bit more. All right, that'll either do it or it won't do it. So now, to get as much torque as I can get, I'm gonna find a smaller extension for this thing, and that way we can not lose as much torque using this extension. This will save us a few inches right here. We'll take that one out, put this one on, make sure this is set at the highest torque setting. Number 3. I did it. Got it off. So now it's going to be a lot of fun to get this off of my 13 millimeter socket, but we'll just go ahead and replace this bolt with another one, and we're good to go. But sometimes that doesn't work, so I was very thankful that it did this time, because I didn't really want to have to pull the whole header off. So now just kind of fiddle with it a little bit. Might need to get a hammer, not a hammer, but maybe a pry bar in here to separate it. Even better, I've got this screwdriver. That'll pry it apart pretty well. There we go, cool. And then all you gotta do, pry it off that bracket, and the whole pipe drops down. Now it looks like my gasket here is not in bad shape. It's actually pretty good. So I think we can reuse it. So it was a good choice to remove it from this point instead of that one, because that one looks like it's starting to crack. So there we go. So the next step is going to be, essentially, we've got to remove this little bracket that supports the exhaust, and then we have to replace the cover, remove the cover from the for the flywheel. And then once that's done, we have full access to drop this oil pan down. So we're gonna zip these guys off really fast. It looks like we got a 14 millimeter here, a 12 millimeter here, and a couple 10s here that also hold the oil pan on to get this cover off. So let's go ahead and get the tools we need, and we'll do that. I just want to show you what I'm talking about here. This cover for the flywheel is in the way of the flange for the oil pan, so that has come down. So there's this bracket, and the cover has one bolt here, one bolt there, and then either 1 or 2 bolts up top that you have to remove from the actual oil pan itself. Once you get those off, you just got to zip all these bolts off, and this baby's coming down. See if my little impact here will do it. Yep, there's that. And then we got a 12 up here, and I think I'll have to use a swivel to get up in there with my 12. Get it up like that. There we go. Keep the bolts together. And now this cover is loose on the bottom, but it still is bolted on the top. So we'll go ahead and get a 10 mil here. And we'll start out by removing the 2 for this cover. You want to keep all these together because these are all for the oil pan. There we go. Now it looks like this cover is loose, so it should just come down now. Sometimes you need a little help. Pry out the screwdriver. Looks like it's catching right here. Kind of work it down. That's awfully close to the axle here. So you may need to slip. That's one way of doing it. There it is. So now we are completely ready to remove this oil pan. You want to make sure that your cardboard is in place underneath just in case, well, it's going to drip. That's how it works. There we go. All right, so she's coming down. There we go. Slowly work it off here. There we go. All right, oil pan is off. Now the gasket's still up here. Now mine is not very old once again, so I'm gonna have the decided advantage over you guys of not having to scrape it off of everything. But this was a cheap gasket, and I guess you get what you pay for. So I bought a slightly better one this time, so hopefully it doesn't cause any issues. So we're gonna get this thrown away, then we'll get this all cleaned up and get the new one reassembled. So the next thing you wanna do is make sure that your oil pan is clean inside and out. Now, this is a new oil pan. It's about 1.5 years old, so I replaced it and the gasket when I did the engine rebuild. And thankfully, it is totally, perfectly clean. I just wiped it off with a paper towel. Now, yours, likely it's been baking in the heat of the engine for 20, 30, 35 years. And it's gonna prove problematic. So there's a number of ways you can get your gasket off of here. I find that using an X-Acto knife, really sharp one with a really sharp blade, works really well. You can just get underneath here and just cut around, and then get on the inside and then cut around, and then you just gotta watch out for these little nubs right here, because if you cut them, you're gonna start scratching them up and getting the paint off, which isn't the end of the world, but you'd want to avoid that as much as possible. So that's the best thing to do. And then, but there is still going to be some gasket material on here. So there are different types of chemical removers that you can use for this. I'll be honest with you, when I do it, I either replace the oil pan or I actually use a wire wheel. But when you use a wire wheel, like, you're guaranteed to jack up the paint. But it's more important for this surface to be completely smooth than for all the paint to be on it. And you can always hit it with paint later. You just have to make sure it's completely oil free, otherwise the paint isn't going to stick. So try to avoid heavy machinery if at all possible. But thankfully this one's nice and clean and ready to go. I got a little bit of oil left in there, but I'm not worried about it. The next step is to get your new oil pan gasket and make sure it fits. So I got one here. It's a Fel-Pro. I got it on Rock Auto. It was not expensive. It was more expensive than the one I got last time, so I'm hoping it's fine. And you want to basically match it up. Make sure that it fits your oil pan. And it does not fit that way. Let's try this way. Yep, fits just fine. So we're good to go. So there are a couple different methods of installing it. I find that the best way to do it is to actually put it on the pan itself, but obviously here you've got issues with it potentially like moving as you're installing it. But thankfully you can see around it since it's bright blue, so you know that you've gotten it up in the right place. Now some people will actually take the gasket and put it up on the engine block because it has the studs that stick down. And that's fine too, but I find that gravity has a way of just letting it fall off. You can use gasket sealer, a couple dabs here and there to hold it in place, either up on the block or down on the actual pan itself. Really doesn't matter. So we're gonna do it this way. I'll see if I've got some gasket sealer to hold it in place. I'm also thinking I'm going to add a little extra gasket sealer right here and right here on both sides where the crankshaft area goes, because that seems to be a problematic area, and these types of gaskets don't seem to hold very well there. So a little bit of extra sealant right there can't hurt, and we'll get it all torqued to spec. Now I might get slammed by a lot of you for doing this, because these are not technically supposed to have any gasket sealer, but I've been having issues, like I said, in these spots. So in order to actually hold the gasket in place and to help it seat better right here at these corners, I am going to put a little bit of this gasket sealer. Now the best one to use is Honda Bond. I do find that the Permatex brand that you can get at Advance also works quite well. So I'm just going to take a little dab, put it right here, and it's starting to dry out a little bit. So we have to work with it a little here. Put a little bit right here, and then kind of clean out the tip. This is a little bit older, so the tip tends to dry up a little bit. There we go. Squeeze some out here, a little bit there, a little bit there. And then to hold the gasket in place, let's put a dab there and a dab there. So you want to smooth it out just a little bit, not too much. You want to have a good glob, but nothing too crazy. And then you take your gasket, you inspect it. You want to wipe it off, make sure that there's no contaminants on it. And then carefully set it on right here, right here. You don't want it to move around too much because it's going to mess up that gasket sealant. There we go. And now, the beauty of the gasket sealer is that this isn't gonna just fall off. It's gonna take a lot more for it to come off. So as long as you ensure that you have it in the right place, you're good to go. So we're pretty much ready. We're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna set up the tripod down here, and we're gonna get this up in the car. We're gonna put all of the bolts in, but not torque them down, and then we'll torque them all to spec. I also forgot to mention that you want the mating surface on the bottom of your engine to be completely clean too, because any gasket material or dirt or particles or grease of any kind is going to cause an issue with the gasket seating properly. So I think this one looks good. We'll give it one more quick wipe down, but we're pretty well good to go here. And we'll get the gasket up. So we'll try from the front. Get her all lined up. There we go. You kind of want to reach up there and feel, make sure your gasket's where it needs to be still. But we're looking good. So then we'll want to take a couple of the nuts and put them on just to hold this thing in place. One there, one there. There we go. So that'll kind of hold on its own. Just work your way around with the nuts here. All right, so the final step in the installation process for the oil pan is to torque the nuts and bolts to spec. Now, general consensus is that it's about 8 to 9 foot-pounds. So if you have just a clicker type torque wrench like this, you just adjust your dial to, I'm going to set mine to 9, and you just tighten it up here and it's ready to go. So everything's been snugged down, so it shouldn't take much to torque it to where it needs to be. And then you'll want to start from the center in a crisscross pattern. So I'll start right here in the front. And since it's such a low torque spec, you don't have a graduated torque like you have with a lot of other engine build, like the cylinder heads and all of that. You just wait till it clicks. So that one clicked, then you go directly back to this one, tighten it up. I just realized we have a problem. I have to actually take off this cover in order to torque these. So these on this side are going to be torqued out of order because I can't get the torque wrench in behind this. So we're going to take these off. And then we have to take that cover down. Let's pry it down like that, just like we did last time, and get it out of the way. And then we'll torque these last two on the end. There we go. And now we can put the cover back on. So these are torqued slightly out of order, but really there's no way around it. I'll use my impact to put the nuts back on. Oh, lost one. Wasn't going on straight. Yep. Okay, we are finished. So everything is all torqued up to spec. Now I had to get creative with these bolts right here. They actually have Allen key holes through them, and they're really cheap junk. So this oil pump that I put in was really not any good. So I got it as close as I could, but I was afraid as I kept tightening that I was going to break off these bolts. So hopefully we don't have any issues with them leaking here. Everything else is torqued perfectly fine. I got the exhaust back on and bolted up. I found a new bolt. a new nut for that. And we got the flange on. Everything's back where it was, all torqued down. So we're ready to throw some oil in it to make sure this drain plug is tight. And I'm actually going to go ahead and replace the filter while I'm at it. That way, it's just a fresh oil change too. But we got it done. We'll see if she leaks in the future, but I bet it won't.